Yerg. Jazz. 8:31 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on Sunday, June 20th, is the summer solstice in 2021. And the Lizavuma chant for that night, for that 8th of the year, for that moment, is what we started with. And we asked the lunar question, how are you emotionally growing? And the solar question, what is your source of courage? In this universal dance, some beasts of burden are herding and others are traveling. Through the motivating power of land and lineage, in this life and for the next, we are hoarding. In the body of comfort, our illuminated souls are shining throughout. Even every color of decreasing, our reliance is in a time blessed to fire beings, among moonbeams and loving gleaming. Storing it in this here, we have the ring, the necklace, and the other necklace with the carnelian point, pertaining to the themes, or, the ones that I've chosen for this quarter of the year. Obviously, the brightest quarter of the year, you got to have it's got to be the one with the fire and the sun, and and red, and the dome of the sun being the highest, and the fire triangle. The tamed God, and you had the representations of Yahweh, Achadrach, Achduturach Tamer, Hazav Tuchu Achid, or something like that, and Tazbout, are, whatever equivalent term. If you remember from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, carnelian and malachite are the two stones that are drawn particular attention to there. And of course, that's just the golden color. It's not real gold. Or I guess maybe it looks It looks brass, but we have various symbols here. Again, the cutting off of the lower selves that are not liberated yet. Couple symbols of return right over there. I have stuff to indicate the time of year. In 2021, the most terrible time of year in the West and in the East, really, was right there, right before the bright quarter started. And giving of a particular amount of grain or fruit or something is very well represented there. The quadrant animal, you got the horse. You got symbols of pilgrimage, your ride and the tent, and the fact that there's feasting, and then as the bright quarter ends, you have fruit harvest. You have the bread, and then you have more bread up there, but I didn't need to put it twice. The salmon fish of wisdom, the rover on Mars, but you're going somewhere else. You're going outside your regular life if you're doing a pilgrimage from all around the world. One's long-reaching ability towards that, and it's around the 4th of July this year. The message and the science and the survival of difficult conditions. The cat that would be thought of as Leo kind of goes over there in a way. You have, what's ancient and the power of the oracle. Litha, of course, is the term. So the Ara Litha, Litha meaning rocks. So pile of rocks makes sense there. It's the longest night of the year for the southern hemisphere and the shortest night of the year for the northern hemisphere. So the full sight in darkness, surviving injustice, disorder, and that sort of thing. I don't think that's, that doesn't seem to be somewhere in the same period, but some museums put it that way. Again, the power of forming rocks, the Horseshoe Rock and Bryce Canyon. The eagle of Scorpio would be up there. The wolf moon would be January. Goats for Capricorn. And, of course, and the Chinese New Year is around the start of the warming quarter of the year. People think of rabbits with Easter, whether Easter that they think of or not. A very male and driven sort of animal. So the April, the emperor, I guess you could give it a rooster at some point. The buds start to come out, but the blossoms get their last right before. There's that turtle named Va that I encounter. Well, that's not the picture of the same turtle, but it's that type. And that turtle, I'm more likely to see it, around over there. It's the time where the coming out of hibernation starts to get toward, reliably above 40 or something at night, and then you start to see it. And when that stops being the case, I think I'm more likely to see it too. Pumpkins, the start of November used to be the thing, but the Christian holiday that happens before the cross quarter. Orange is one of the colors there. And, all these symbols are open to your own interpretation. And the Drill Sergeant Gray chant. There isn't a Galbany chant, as far as I know. If there becomes one, there'll be one in the seasonal, but Lum kz pivb havaxleave wo kalti z rum zipti And so, in short, before I get into the verses, we look at, blood and flesh, the wine and the, but we're not talking about the drink and the food of the mass or something like this. We're talking about how there's a teaching beyond blood and flesh and that soil, but these things are a means. They're means. Blood and soil aren't, I'm of this ancestry and all this stuff. No. You're not inherently superior. It's the superiority is what you do with what you have, basically. And we're talking about the whispers, the whispers, as shown by these verses. We don't have all these verses, but we have the transformation of the soul. So what is the real message? What is the real message? It's scientifically aligned, of course. I mean, as far as what we know of science, certain stuff is different types of science. And our own becoming of what's best, our transmutation, as it would be called. 1253. And I declare my soul isn't innocent. Truly the soul is that which inclines to evil. But when my Lord had mercy, truly my Lord is forgiving, compassionate. 75:2 is, and I swear an oath by the reproachful soul. 89:27-30 is, O soul, one that is at peace, return to thy Lord, one that is well-pleasing, well-pleased, enter thou among my servants, and thou enter my garden. So these are stages that the soul goes through. The stage where you're worse than the animal and your soul's been programmed to be inclined towards evil, or either through internal baseless invention or something imposed from the outside, whatever the case, it's not your true will. And then you end up with the self-correcting soul, and then you end up with the wholesome, at peace soul. 22:52-55. And we sent not before thee any messenger nor prophet, but when he fantasized, Satan cast fantasies into him, but God nullifies what Satan cast. Again, God set clear his signs, and God is knowing wise, for he makes what Satan cast a test for those who in their heart is a sickness, and their hearts one that harden. And truly, the ones who are unjust are widely breaching. And those who were given the knowledge know that it's the truth from thy Lord, so that they believe in it, and humble their hearts to him. And truly God is one who guides those who believed to a straight path, and those who are ungrateful cease not to be hesitant about it, until the hour approaches them suddenly, or the punishment approaches them on a withering day. Now we can also say that this is literally saying that, so the prophet desires and, would be in complete surrender to God. But one of the things that happens is that the human being themselves, the other human beings would say stuff, or they would have their desires. Now, would it be in accord with what the prophets were sent with? That varies. So what is the true message and what's being thrown in as a devilish trick towards oneself? We have 25:43. Hast thou considered him who took himself as God, his own desires as his God? Would you then be over him a trustee? And so people distrust in themselves, and to that degree, you can't make them choose what they're going to choose. Proverbs 18:1, through desire a man, having separated himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. Then we have 1 Corinthians 7:5. Defraud ye not one the other, except that it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourself to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your inconsistency. Incontinency. Okay. And James 1:13. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempteth he any man. And so that's the verse from Proverbs. And is that Corinthians? Is that James there? Jeremiah 30:17. For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith God as a noun and verb, because they called thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Joel 3:21. For I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. For God as a noun and verb dwelleth in Zion. And you can think of this as beyond some particular piece of land or ancestry, of course. But that will be explained more elsewhere. Ezekiel 17:8. It was planted in a good soil by great waters, that it might bring forth branches, that it might bear fruit, that it might be a goodly vine. Okay, that's what I put over there. 2 Corinthians 11:13-14. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Now, the light beings, the fire beings, and the clay beings don't become each other, but we can think of something kind of different, or perhaps it's interpreted as such. Romans 12:2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And so the world for its own terms per se, but the world is, of course, a means, as we've gone over earlier. Matthew 17:2. And was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. And, as I said, pilgrims, the pilgrims, and the biggest pilgrimage of the world, I guess Arbaeen's the biggest one, but the biggest one actually prescribed by religious books, you could say. The one that's regarded the most sacred, maybe not the most practiced, but they come dressed in white garb to transfigure themselves in a more spiritual way. Mark 9:8. And suddenly they had looked around about. They saw no man any more, save Jesus only with themselves. And so a time comes when a person's in a state where their awareness of the others is not there. Hebrews 11:5-6. By faith, Enoch was translated, that he should not see death. And was not found, because God had translated him. For before his translation, he had seen this testimony that pleased God. And remember, I am responding to these things according to my own beliefs and practices. You can, too, as one goes along here or in the actual ritual. Colossians 1:13. Who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear son. We can think of that as various different sort of metaphors. 2 Samuel 3:10, to translate the kingdom from the house of Saul and to set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judea from Dan even to Beersheba. Revelations 16:4 through 7. And the third angel poured out his vial upon the rivers and fountains of the waters, and they became blood. And I heard the angel of the waters say, Thou art righteous, O Lord, which art and wast and shalt be, because thou hast judged thus. For they have shed the blood of saints and prophets, and thou hast given them blood to drink, for they are worthy. And I heard another out of the altar say, Even so, Lord God Almighty, and righteous are thy judgments. And 18:24. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints, and all that were slain upon the earth. Acts 20:26. Wherefore I take you to record this day that I am pure from the blood of all men. What would be a pure? So, there, the red stripe, maybe. The foreign element. The pure starting. Using the world, but not of the world, maybe. Acts 2:19 and 20. I will shew wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before that great and notable day of the Lord come. And, very oracular, you could say. Color, not really shape, but color kind of shows itself in there. Mark 14:24. And he said unto them, This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many. New Testament, New Celtic Year. Matthew 16:17. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. The sacred feast, you could say. But that's the verse right there. Proverbs 30:33. Surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter, and the wringing of the nose bringeth forth blood. So the forcing of wrath bringeth forth strife. And so milk is sort of the color, the vitality that we, are addressing is sort of the blood, and the various, and the butter of it all is the various joyous objects that we have to use and all that. Exodus 7:19. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon their rivers, upon their ponds, and upon all their pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in the vessels of wood and the vessels of stone. And we can think of wood and stone as different types of consciousness, Lamentations 4:13-14. For the sins of her prophets and the iniquities of her priests, that have shed the blood of the just in the midst of her, they have wandered as blind men in the streets. They have polluted themselves with blood, so that men could not touch their garments. And 1 Thessalonians 5:23. And the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray God your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless on the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, when I say that, I of course mean in the way it sort of originally meant, the spiritual master. I'm not taking Jesus as a God or anything like that. And we have and Drill Sergeant Gray, what that means to you, the entity that's present and training in the midst of it all. Lam kz tivib havok sleeve wo kalti z ram zipti. Whatever your intention or use with any of these particular verses and chants and symbols, they're obviously more open than what I've listed. Was fo was fu nuln is zvi yerg jizv